Well, hey everybody, Dave Marsh back with you, and I've got a great guest with me today. Mr. Merlin Beitzel is here, and Merlin is someone I've known for quite a number of years now. We've become friends. He's a leader in our church, and of course, a leader in the business community here in Garrett County, and it even reaches beyond. So we're excited to hear a little bit about Merlin's story today, and what some practical advice he could offer us. We're looking at kind of the stewardship of our lives right now, Merlin. We're doing this series called Right on the Money, but it's much bigger than money. It's this understanding that God has blessed us all with gifts, talents, time, treasure. Hey, and we still have a fly here at Crossroads, so
Right.
he's kind of our mascot. He'll be with us today as well. But we're looking at kind of this holistic approach to our lives and making sure that we use everything God has given us for His glory and for the good of our family and the good of others. So I just want to say thanks for being willing to come down and talk a little bit today. And I thought maybe a good place to start is your story. A lot of folks know you, but I'm sure there are a lot of folks who don't. So tell us a little bit about who Merlin Beitzel, the guy, is.
The guy. All
The
right.
guy.
Well, thank you for inviting me, David. I'm excited to be here. When Dave asked me, it's something I've never done before like this, but I'm excited to try something new and to contribute back to what you're doing here at Crossroads. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
My name is Merlin Beitzel, and I'm the youngest of 11 kids. I grew up in Springs, Pennsylvania.
11
11,
kids.
11. So we were quite a tribe. And being the youngest, I don't know what that does to you or for you. I'm also an identical twin. So when we talk about identity crisis and everything, my nickname was the Babe. I was just one of the youngest, so we were the Babes. That's what we would answer to.
Wow.
But yeah, we grew up being that size family, pretty poor and pretty self-sufficient. Whatever you wanted in life, you had to go after,
Okay.
Including chocolate cake. If it came out of the oven, you better be on
I
top
was
of
going to
it.
say, probably including dinner. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Like if you weren't there, nobody really worried about it. You had to fend for yourself. I think that served me well in many aspects. I think that's a positive thing in my life. I have a lot of extended family. We love each other. We do a lot together, and just blessed with that. So growing up in Springs, PA, I started, since we're going to be talking about work, I started working when I was about 6 years old.
Wow.
My twin brother and I, we popped popcorn, and we walked up and down the streets of Springs, and we sold it for 10 cents a bag.
Is that right?
Yeah, so I was always the kid that was selling oranges, the newspaper, greeting cards, anything like that. I just loved to do something like that. And then when I was older, 14 years old, I got my first paycheck job at Yoder's Meat Packers. And then when I graduated high school, I started working for my father. We had a chicken farm, about 30,000 chickens. And we delivered eggs to the area.
30,000 chickens.
30,000 chickens. That was a lot of chickens to take care of and eggs to clean and sort. And so that was some of my early years. I learned to work hard, and
Yeah.
I learned what it meant to be consistent. That's 365 days a year doing that type of job. But then from there, I had another job as a construction manager, and 27 years ago, last week, I started at Beitzel Corporation, and now Pillar Innovations also. So I started there as a quality control manager, and moved up in different responsibilities through human resources and executive vice president, and now I'm president of both Beitzel Corporation and Pillar Innovations.
Wow. So you've had quite a journey from starting selling popcorn on the streets of Springs, Pennsylvania, to the president of what is the largest private employer in Garrett County, between Beitzel Corp and Pillar Innovations. You've seen a lot over the years. I'm sure you've overseen a lot of job interviews, employees, probably HR situations, all that sort of stuff. You've really kind of seen it all.
Yep, I've sseen quite a bit in
Yeah.
my career. Yep.
Yeah. So one of the goals I think for the series that we're doing is I want to try to help folks who might find themselves what I would call underemployed. You know, they're working and they're working hard, but they're still struggling to meet the needs of their family. And sometimes that is just because they're underemployed. They don't have enough income, you know, to pay those bills and do short-term planning and long-term saving and all that sort of stuff. And with the job market the way it is, I'm thinking now is a great time to maybe start thinking about a job move. And, you know, there's a lot of things that kind of hold us back from that. Fear, loyalty, you know, all sorts of things. What if I fail? What if I don't make it? All that sort of stuff. But as we were talking before we kind of started recording today, that you said, now's a great time to even try something. And if it doesn't work out, there are so many jobs out there, you can jump right back in.
Yeah, I think the opportunity that exists in our county and in our country right now, we've never seen anything like this. And that's a tremendous, maybe a safety net for anybody that wants to try something different, try something new, that there is just so much opportunity. You know, it's like there's always opportunity around us, but there's just never been, you know, I think everybody sees that in everywhere you go. There's just all the help wanted signs. I know we are currently looking for about 25 or 30 positions,
Wow.
and we're just one company in the area. So yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for people to ask themselves to just stop and think and say, how open are you to opportunity?
Yeah.
And that's not a yes or a no question. It's not binary. It is maybe on a scale from 1 to 10. Would I consider another opportunity? You talked about loyalty, Dave, and that's, my wife will tell you that I was in a job that was okay, but it wasn't terrific.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. Loyalty is a terrific thing for an employee to have, but that was also for me and my family, that was my biggest negative. I was so loyal that I wouldn't even consider another opportunity.
Yeah.
So I want to challenge everybody today just to say, are you open to opportunity? Are you open to think about something bigger?
Yeah.
I heard a podcast with Greg Kershell, and he said, what would you think of if you could think bigger? And I think that's a good challenge for us today.
Yeah.
If you could actually think bigger, what would you dream of for yourself or to think about in your job opportunity?
Yeah. I was a young man I was living in another state at the time, and I met a new friend, and we were talking, and we went to church together. And actually, as awkward as this sounds, we were in the church restroom, which is normally off limits for conversation. Okay, I could go on and on about that, but we were there, and somehow we started talking, and in my financial struggle, our family was really struggling. Came up, and he looked at me and he said, "Well, you ought to be making X amount of dollars." Well, in my mind, I never thought I could ever make that X amount of dollars. But he said, well, for a family your size, you should be making X amount of dollars to just meet the needs. Again, we're not talking about, the goal of this series is not, you know, to become wealthy so we can spend it on our pleasures. That's not the goal. But we do have this responsibility before God to take care of the needs of our family. And when this guy, he was a little older, a little more experienced, he really challenged the way I thought about money and about career and employment and all that. And it was like one of those, you know, wake-up call moments, a paradigm shift in my thinking that, hey, you know, I could try something else. I could try to step out and do something to better my family. And today, you know, I mean, that's decades ago, but I thank God for Dean and the conversation in the church bathroom, you know, because it really changed my life. And sometimes that's where folks are. They just need a new thought. They need a new idea. They need someone to maybe challenge them a little bit. And if you're in a job you love today and it's meeting your needs and you feel fulfilled, then by all means, stick with it. Be loyal. Be the best employee that company could hope for. But if you're in a situation where you're struggling, your bills aren't paid, you don't feel fulfilled, you don't feel like you're using the gifts and talents God gave you, now might be a time to look around, pray, make some connections, update that resume, and look and see what else is out there.
Right. I would just challenge anybody that's listening to this just to at least be open. Andy Stanley talks about an open hand conversation. Just literally sit down, open your hands up, and say, I'm listening. Is God speaking to me or not?
Yeah.
Maybe the answer is no, you're good where you are, and that's where you're called to be, and that's what you're supposed to do. But open your hands and listen.
Yeah. Merlin, again, you've been in business for many years, and starting very, very small, and now overseeing a whole lot of people. Can we talk a little bit about some real practical things? Like, what if a person is saying, hey, yeah, this is time for me to think about some new opportunities, to maybe take a little bit of risk, maybe step out a little bit. I mean, our resumes, I know the world has changed some, and a whole lot in the past few years, but is that still an important thing, or what are some of those first steps at looking at new opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. A resume is the big thing. A lot of employers still require an application as well, so that's important. But the nice thing with everything's going to virtual. We do a lot of our interviews virtually with Teams or any other type of Skype or other virtual software. But the first thing, it's so easy just to upload a resume and send it in. So that becomes very important, because sometimes you aren't a face anymore. You are your resume.
Yeah.
And you need to present that in a way that's very representative of who you are. And certainly going through that, having it up to date, having it prepared. If you're going to consider doing anything with that, if you haven't updated it within the last 3 months, you need to update your resume.
Is that right? Okay,
Yep.
So you need to keep that resume current.
Right.
Okay.
And it's also good just for yourself on a professional level, just to keep track of your accomplishments and just see what you've done. But have that polished and ready. Obviously, have a couple people look over it. We all have that writer's block where, because I wrote it, I know what I'm saying, and we overlook things that somebody else will see. Ask somebody who is honest and critical to go over.
So not just your mother.
Yes, that's right. Your mother's going to tell you it's great. I still remember a resume that a lady was applying for an accounting job, and she said, very good attention to detailing instead of details. She was detailing.
So if you had any tiles that needed taken up in the office, she's going to be your gal.
She could take that up. So she wrote it. I've made those mistakes. I'm not making fun, but I'm just saying, let somebody else with a critical eye look over your resume, be prepared and ready to go with that.
Yeah. Now, how important are some of the newer tools like LinkedIn or Indeed.com or some of those? Are employers looking at those things?
Yes, absolutely. We actively recruit by using LinkedIn.
Okay.
If we're looking for a design engineer, or if we're looking for a tower climber, we will go into Indeed and also into LinkedIn, and we'll look who else has those credentials or is in that type of market. So that's a great networking place. Just obviously also your live networks, your family, your relatives, your church community is a great place to network and look for opportunity that you might not know about.
Yeah. I think one important thing to note is also when we all have this online identity now, and it speaks a lot about us. So if you're looking for a career change, or I'm applying at a new company, you might want to jump on your Facebook account and see, what does this say about me? Jump on your Instagram account and say, what does this say about me? Because people are looking at those things. It's just the reality of the world that we live in. And so make sure your online representation of yourself is one that would make a company say, hey, I'd like to have that person on my team. Or, ooh, he's a real drama king. I'm not sure I want him in here.
Yes,
it's just part of it.
That is absolutely correct. That happens every day, that HR or even the hiring manager is going to look you up on your social media and make sure you are presenting what you want to have out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Merlin, so say we get that resume updated, we fill out an application, and we land an interview. I know you've probably done hundreds and hundreds of interviews over the years. How does a person, I mean, it's first of all, it's nerve-wracking, for that applicant going in. How do they prepare? What's some tips you would give to somebody to prepare for that interview?
Well, definitely be prepared, and don't just say, well, I'll just show up and see what's going on.
Yeah.
I would say, obviously, if it's either in person or online, be on time, be prompt, be at least try to think about what position am I interviewing for, and dress for that position or one or two steps above that.
Okay.
So in other words, if I'm looking for a heavy equipment operator, I don't want to come in a suit, but you also don't want to have your mechanic clothes on that you just changed the engine in your car or whatever.
Yeah.
A little bit of step up to show some respect there, but dress for the position plus up a notch or two. It's amazing when, we did a lot of interviews over the years, and just count on it, that person interviewing you is probably watching you pull into the parking lot. And they're learning about you as they see your habits when you pull in.
Yeah.
Are you on time? Are you prepared? Did you know where you're going? Did you pull into the parking spot straight? Are you just your general appearance and what you're doing? Also, just you walk in, the first person you're going to see is probably the receptionist. Treat them with respect. They do tell the hiring manager what you were like in the lobby as well.
Yeah.
That does make a difference. So just all the normal things that you should be treating people the right direction anyhow. But I would also say I see a lot of people that you can tell when it's just another interview.
Okay.
Like, yeah, okay, I got to come here and go through this. But what I love to see is when somebody really is committed that this is the job that they want. Think about that, and if it's not, should you really be going for the interview, maybe you do just need a job, but research the company a bit. What does the company value? A lot of companies have core values, and they also have a mission statement. And I remember telling my son he was interviewing for a job just a couple months ago, and as he looked at each company, he looked at the core values. And the one company, their core value was humor. Well, good for him, because our family is all about humor.
Yeah.
And so I said, hey, try to keep things alive, and that's what they're looking for. They're telling you right on their website what their core values are. Speak to those, and if you can even tie that into your interview, so much better for you. But, even beyond that, we got this fly with us today yet, don't we?
He's looking for a job, apparently.
Yeah, he's got one.
Yeah.
Bugging us. But, just I think the thought process to say, hey, what if I did land this job? Is this someplace I want to be? Am I excited about being here? And, sometimes we get too committed and it's like too big of a deal. If I don't get this job, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
But I love to see when somebody is like, hey, I know so-and-so that works for your company. I've heard so much about you guys. I have always wanted to be part of this. And you need to be committed to that. Your chances of landing that job are going to be so much better if you put a little bit of effort into that and become prepared for that.
Yeah. Energy is so important, I think. If you come in and you're dragging like Eeyore to an interview, I think that's what you're going to bring to my company, and I don't want that. I need some life about you. I need a smile. You mentioned even humor, some energy about you. Bring that into the room. That's going to make that employer excited about, hey, I want this person on the team. You also mentioned researching the company. There's usually a time in an interview where that interviewer will turn it back to the person being interviewed and say, do you have any questions? One of the worst things you can do is say, nope, don't think so. Because that speaks volumes to them, the fact that you're not interested to that next level, that you've not given thought to, hey, what would it look like to work here? What does a person who wins here, what are some of their top 5 characteristics,
Right.
You need to have some give and take there. I've bombed some job interviews before, and it's like you leave there and you go, what just happened? That wasn't me. But the problem was I wasn't prepared. And so really taking that preparedness to the next level, knowing about that company, knowing what questions to ask, it can go a long way.
Yeah, and I would say count on that question being asked at the end. Do you have any questions? And you better have at least 2 good ones ready.
Yeah.
That speaks a lot that you're interested in what's going on. One of your questions should not be, yeah, how much does it pay? Okay, let's start with that. That's not, sure, if you're going to accept the position, you need to know what it's going to pay. They'll get around to that. That will happen.
Yeah.
One of the best answers I heard to that question was, I asked the guy, do you have any questions for us? And he said, yeah, I do. Matter of fact, is there anything that I said in our interview today that you would disqualify me for, or that you feel like, boy, that didn't sound too good? That was an excellent question, because
Wow.
if there was something, that gave him an opportunity to clarify that.
Yeah.
So I love that. It also gave him an advantage, like he knew what I was thinking. He was asking me in a very polite way, what are you thinking?
Yeah, boy, that is great. That is great.
Another thing you mentioned, Dave, that I want to just bounce back on, you said about kind of attitude and ambition. Show up with, excited about what's going on. Merlin Beitzel was the founder of our company and a mentor to me. And Olin always talked about 3 A's. He told me when I started doing interviews for the company, he said, Merlin, I'm looking for people in this company that have 3 A's: attitude, ambition, and ability. And then he always would pause and say, and the ability we can teach. So really, I'm looking for two A's, attitude and ambition. If you're a beginner as an electrician, but you've got an excellent attitude and ambition, you will be an excellent electrician.
Yeah.
If you're a master electrician, but you've got a bad attitude, we probably don't have a place for you.
Yeah.
So attitude, ambition, any company, even if they don't say it, that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. I don't want to belabor this point, but what every person has to understand is culture is so important in any company, any business, any organization, big or small. You've all got a culture. And every employee or team member is going to contribute to that culture. So when someone's sitting there in a chair and they're looking across and they're thinking, what is this person going to bring to the culture of Beitzel Corp or Pillar or Crossroads Church or the Dollar General Store or McDonald's or whatever we're talking about? You're going to bring something with you. And that is what Olin was saying, is like, hey, some of this other stuff, if you don't know how to do something, we can teach it.
Right.
But if you're going to bring bad attitude, bad work ethic, if you're going to bring drama, if you're going to bring that into our culture, we really can't afford to have you on the team. Mm-hmm. So it is so important, folks. And, this is a good time, too, if you're thinking about life change. Do some self-reflection. And, like, if over time, life's kind of made you a little sour. Maybe you've walked through some things that made you, you're a little bitter, you're a little negative, or you're coming from a bad job experience. You got to get before God and say, Lord, would you cleanse me of those things? Because I don't want to carry that into the next place. When I go to that new position, I want to be someone who is really an ambassador for Christ. And I want to bring kindness and goodness and enthusiasm into this company. So help me to heal from some of the stuff I've walked through so I can be ready for that new position.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we all know the Colossians 3, it says, whatever you do, work with all your heart as working for the Lord and not for a human master.
Yeah.
And that should be a part of our lives with everything we do. That should be a goal. We all fail. I understand that. But as a Christian, if my relationship with the Lord doesn't change who I am at work, then there's something missing, something I need to be challenged with and to work on. We won't be perfect, but we know that God brings us rewards when we do that. He says that we will have an inheritance from the Lord as a reward for working for our earthly masters like we are working for the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I know that was drilled in myself growing up as a child. I remember my mom just many times saying, hey, are you working as you're working for the Lord? And there's times that we work in a job. Probably some people listening to this right now are saying, yeah, but you don't know my earthly master.
Yeah.
Remember the context where this was in Rome, and we don't have a clue what they're talking about in the some of those situations in the Bible. But I think with any situation that you're working in, you can learn something.
Yep.
I think about when one of my first jobs, my first paycheck. I had the guy that was in charge of everything in that area of the business. He was a very hard man, and he would just curse you for no reason.
Wow.
And it was one of those things that, as a 14, 15-year-old kid, I'm thinking like, why do I have to put up with it? What am I here for?
Yeah.
But I learned more about managing people in that situation than I did the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Because I learned what it felt like. And I learned to appreciate my workers, and that things aren't always the way they seem from the boss's perspective.
Yeah.
I knew that I could be working hard all day long, and I sat down to take a 2-minute break, and he walked in.
Yeah.
So when I walked in those situations, I didn't always assume the worst.
Yeah.
So I'll bounce it back to you, Dave. Have you ever had a job that just there was something bad happening in the job, and it was just negative or whatever, and you learned something through that?
Many. And in fact, a lot of the ways I lead our team here at church is through the filter of how I was treated, and I want to make sure I don't treat anyone that way. So often if I have to maybe have a difficult conversation with someone, I'll look back at my previous work experience and I'll say, well, how did that boss talk to me, and how did I feel? I want to make sure I don't do that. And on the flip side, if I had a supervisor or a boss or someone I was working for who maybe they had a difficult conversation with me, but I left that conversation still feeling valued and respected, I'll say, what did they do differently than this other person? And I'll try to incorporate those things into the way that I'm leading my team. So, yeah, I agree with you. You can learn from every experience. Sometimes it's good, positive things, and sometimes it's, I'll make sure I never do that, and that. It's kind of like a vaccination toward, some negative behavior that you might be tempted to reproduce. And I'll say another thing, too. You talked about the leader's perspective. Sometimes when we're working under people, we don't see what they see. And often they're dealing with a whole other ball of wax. They're dealing with lots of issues that we might not see in our one department. And I think that's why the Bible does admonish us to, submit to those in authority above us. Don't be that person that's always causing drama and such. Because what I've found is once I got into a position of leadership, I saw things from a totally different perspective than when I did, when I wasn't there.
Right. Definitely, there are times where your leader maybe would like to explain some things to you, but just can't.
Yeah.
Because of privacy issues, or just some things are working behind the scenes that I just can't explain to you. And it's not that, to talk down on somebody, but there are reasons for that. It's somewhat like at the house. Mom and dad hopefully are good parents, and they're trying their best, but there's times they can explain things to the kids, and sometimes they can't.
Yeah.
And that's just the leadership role. That's how God has established it, and He has given us some direct responsibilities of how to respond and to act in those situations.
Yeah. Well, again, you're leading a really big organization, or a couple of them. I'll put you on the spot. Do you know how many employees you have right now, ballpark?
Yeah, about 475.
Okay, so you're getting close to that 500 employee mark, which, I just can't even imagine trying to keep track of all that. But the reason I ask that is I'm sure through that many people in this many years of experience, you've probably seen some patterns over the years of people who do well. Mm-hmm. People who just really succeed in your companies. Could you name us, 2 or 3 or 4 characteristics that you see in these people who if they have this, and this working in their lives, they just seem to succeed in our business? What would be some of those things?
Attitude, ambition, and I'm going to throw in there integrity.
Okay.
There's certainly a lot of other things that contribute to that. But in our business, we have always, we've decided that integrity is utmost important, and we're going to, everything gets filtered through integrity.
Okay.
And it should. So, there are people that, it's amazing what you see in the workforce at times, how people try to get ahead or whatever. For us, and I think really most businesses, when you see somebody that's not working with integrity, it's a big negative, and you put up your guard and you say, I'm not sure about this. I think just the other thing is passion, and just being passionate about what you do.
Yeah.
There are people in our company that they get excited about fiber optic terminations and hanging fiber optic cable. There are people that get excited about earthwork and just equipment and running, a pipe and making sure it's level. I think, there's people that get excited about crane work. And that's, our one guy, over the years, he would, at times, we would talk about his son, Mason, and his son had this crane, and then he had that crane, and then that crane. When he was 2 or 3 years old, he was just excited about cranes. Yeah. And that's because his dad was excited about those types of things. Yeah. So I think whatever you're doing, to be passionate about it, and just to be excited about it. In our company, there were several of my brothers that were there as well. My one older brother was just very passionate, and just when we were kids, he would tear anything apart. Like if you got a brand new TV, he's tearing it apart, and he needed to understand how it worked. Yeah. Now some of the electronics really threw him for a loop because you can't see anything working, but yeah. That's who he is, and that's how he works. I love dealing with people, and he would look at me and say, "What's the matter with you? Like, why do you want to deal with this when we're dealing with a drug screen that is questionable, or with an employee that, has this other personal thing going on in their lives?" That's how I work. I deal with those problems and those people trying to make a difference and make things better. He deals with, if your air conditioner's broke down, he's out there. He's not in here talking to you. He's out there making it. So I think that's, we all have passion that we need to figure out. And I think, Dave, that's another big part before you get to the resume and before you get to how to get the interviews and all that, is at this time of opportunity, just to figure out, what are you passionate about? Many of us are stuck in jobs that we're not the best person in it because we're not passionate about it. We're stuck in jobs that we hate, and we find it hard to give that extra 10% because we're not passionate about it. I think today's a good opportunity to ask yourself, what could you do if you could think bigger than where you are today? Yeah. What are you passionate about? One way that I heard on a podcast how to do that is to ask other people. Maybe this is the time to ask your mother. Yeah. Hey, Mom, what did I light up about when I was 4 years old, when I was 6 years old? My mom would have said, well, you always wanted to sell things and you always wanted to talk to people. My brother Titus hated to talk to people. He would hide under the steps when it was time to collect money on the paper route. Wow. And he would pay me to go to the door and knock on the door. So that just tells you, Mom would say, hey, don't go into this business, go into that business. Yeah. And Titus is also the electrician, and he likes the mechanical sides of things. So what lights your fire? What gets you excited? Is this an opportunity just to step back and say, maybe there's something more in that direction? I think, ask yourself that question, what would I do if I could think bigger? And force yourself to write down an answer to that. I would also, if I wanted to look for a different job or a different career, I would ask a couple trusted friends and say, what do you see in me? Dave, I would come to you and I'd say, Dave, what do you see in me that you say, this is what you're good at? Because sometimes we don't see ourselves. I'm with me too much. Yeah. And you would say, here's what you do well. This is what people always value when they look at you. Yeah. And this is something you ought to consider. Yeah. So I think that would be a good place to start.
That's a great point. You don't want to just make a move just for the sake of making the move. Mm-hmm. Yeah, is more money good? Yep, that's good. But being able to use those passions that you have, there's nothing like that. that changes your whole life. And I went through a similar thing about 20 years ago, trying to figure out, what am I doing with my life? And I went to a guy who was a little older than me. We sat down, we had a conversation, and I asked him some of those same questions that you're talking about. Help me see me. I don't know, I think I know me, but I don't really. And he gave me some feedback. And then he told me, I read a book. He said, get this book. It's called What Color is Your Parachute? And through that book, there's some exercises you go through to help you really kind of determine, what do I want to do? Like, if I'm hiding under the steps to collect the money, I probably shouldn't be in a place where I've got to collect money all the time. I'm interacting with people. Do you like working with people, or would you rather work with numbers? Do you like being outside somewhere, or would you rather be in an office somewhere? Those are all important, because you're going to do that stuff every single day, or probably 5 days a week at least. And so really taking some time, and then of course prayer. Include God in that. He is your partner in this. He is ultimately our master. And so we want to include him, and we want to give it some thought, give it some prayer. Lord, what have you put me on this planet to do? I've only got a limited amount of time here, so I want to use this time to fulfill my purpose. One of them is, after this podcast, I'm thinking we could put our heads together, maybe get one of your brothers involved, and create some sort of fly trap that really works.
like gets every fly.
Gets every fly. Well,
Yep.
Merlin, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your experience and your heart. And here's what I want to ask you to do as we close today. Would you lead us in a prayer? And again, we've talked a lot of different topics here, but the one I'm thinking about is maybe that person who they're underemployed, their needs aren't getting met, or they feel like they're not using those passions. Could you take a minute and let's just pray for them today? Ask God to lead and guide, direct their steps.
Okay, yeah, let's do
that.
that. Father in heaven, we thank you for this opportunity to share in this way, to speak to the church. God, I want to pray for each person that is listening to this. Just help us to have open hands and open hearts to listen to your voice speaking in our ears. God, I pray for those that maybe are saying, hey, maybe God does have something more for me. I just pray that you would speak to their hearts, and you would speak through other people around them, through situations.
Yes, God.
God, I just pray that we could recognize you as our master, and that our work here on earth would be a result of that as well. And God, I just pray that we would know that it's you speaking to us, and that we would see that direction.
Yes, God.
Maybe it's just a reinforcement of where we are, that we are at the right place, and we are important, and what we do matters in your kingdom. Reassure us of that. And but God, beyond that, I just pray that you would help us to not give in to fear.
Yes.
Fear might have a voice in our life, but it doesn't have a vote, and that we would listen to the voice of your Spirit above that fear. That at times when we do need to make a change, it is scary, and that we would be reassured that you are faithful to us, and we need to work through that, and we are willing to make that effort. God, at the end, we want to be like the servant that you said, good and well done, good and faithful servant.
Yes,
because you have put us in charge of things, and we want you to put us in charge of many more. We want to be faithful with the talents that you've given to us and to our families as well. So I pray that you would take what we've said and you would bless it to the hearer. Amen.
Amen. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks,
you.
Merlin.
Thank you.